Today we're going to talk about a very interesting condition that I see quite often in people. It's growths on the finger joints. These growths often appear on the joints of the fingers and sometimes on the joints of the toes, which lead to deformation, a curvature of the digits. In other words, these little pads start to grow on the joints. Sometimes this leads to deformation and curvature of the joints. Sometimes entire bumps appear. People say it's gout. It's the same with the feet. It leads to the toes becoming crooked. They start to stick out from the others. Some kind of bone or growth protrudes, and people say it's gout, that it's gout related, that it's uric acid. This is not gout at all. Well, there is some connection to gout, but it's slightly different. So I take a person's hand. There are bony growths on the joints. The joints are enlarged like little barrels. These small joints here, there's no pronounced inflammation, no severe pain. They're not hot to the touch, meaning there's no acute inflammation. And when I'm holding a person's hand, I always ask one question. Which organ isn't working, causing these growths to appear on the fingers? What organ is causing these changes in the joints? Well, they say it's arthritis. Of course, it's arthritis. It's clear the problem is with the joints. Which organ isn't working? Well, I don't know, they say, often with uncertainty or hesitation. But you do know, you really do know. You know which organ isn't working. By the way, it's important to note that there might not even be any acute inflammatory process present at all in some cases. It's something a little different. The person doesn't know, so let's move on to clarifying questions. I point to these bony growths. What has been deposited here? Salts. Well, salts is a folk term. In medicine, there's no direct equivalent, although salts have indeed been deposited there. So I say salts have been deposited here. Now, here's the question. Which organ was supposed to remove these salts from the body so they wouldn't get deposited? The person thinks reluctantly, but they usually get it right away. The kidneys are supposed to remove salts. So the person understands that the kidneys are supposed to remove all the salts, these excretory substances from my body. And if they don't, then these excretory substances, these salts, start to get deposited in the joints, the spine, the small joints, and the large ones. Salts, salt deposits, salts. The question is, why didn't the kidneys remove these salts from the body? And the answer, my friends, is very simple. Because you gave your kidneys too little water for them to be able to flush out these salts. The person drinks too little water. As strange as it may sound, these bony growths on the joints appear primarily because the person doesn't drink enough water. And because they don't drink enough water, the kidneys can't flush out the salts. In that case, the specific gravity of the urine will be terribly high. And by the way, I should talk about this. Make a separate video. And because this amount of water isn't enough to flush out all the salts, they start to deposit in the joints without causing a sharp, acute inflammatory process. But the salts are still deposited and there are metabolic disorders. That's the problem. Therefore, the first thing you need to do is ensure that the kidneys start removing a sufficient amount of salt. I always tell people in this situation, the standard amount of water they need to drink. The standard amount of water for a person, folks, just remember this. Remember this number. It's the biologically permissible minimum amount of water to drink. The biologically permissible minimum is 1 liter of water for every 30 kilograms of body weight. And this doesn't include other liquids. It doesn't include tea, juice, fruit drinks, soup, or other liquids. It's only water. That's the amount of water the kidneys need to flush the salts from my body. That's why it's the biologically permissible minimum. You can drink more. There's no harm in that. In fact, it's impossible to overdo it with water. All the excess water will simply be removed by the kidneys without any metabolic disturbances. You'll just have more urine, and that's it. It won't harm the body in any way. Nothing will be flushed out. No useful minerals will be flushed out. Urea will be flushed out and nothing else. But the more water a person drinks, the better. The problem arises when a person drinks too little water. And so, regardless of whether you feel like it or not, to avoid these bony growths, the first thing I recommend is to always reach the standard amount of water a person should drink. Reach that standard. Reach that biologically permissible minimum. Yes, if you wait, I'm often criticized for this. People say, what are you talking about, doctor? How can you say that? Am I supposed to drink 5 liters of water a day? And I say, and it doesn't bother you that you have a 150 kilogram body? Nothing. Is everything okay? Nothing bothers you, everything's fine. Another person argues with me in the comments, how can you say that? How can I drink 3 liters of water a day? I ask, and what's your weight? She says, 120. Then I say, you don't need 3, you need to drink 4 liters of water. Otherwise, how? Well, it's a disaster. And these little growths are always accompanied by the fact that the person drinks too little water. So drink the necessary amount of water. Second, you need to activate the kidneys, make them work. To activate the kidneys, they need to be warmed up. The kidneys need energy. They need heat. Heat, it comes first through the legs, and second, not much of it reaches them because the kidneys don't receive the necessary amount of heat. They don't work properly. And so to activate the kidneys, wrap them in Turmanium ceramics, use infrared heat, Turmanium ceramics, warm your kidneys, and most importantly, warm your legs. Warm your legs. And when you start warming your legs, the heat from your legs activates the kidneys and they start to cleanse you better. By the way, uric acid diathesis and kidney stone disease are also signs that a person isn't drinking enough water. By warming the legs and kidneys, the kidneys begin to cleanse themselves and they start to cleanse the person better. So will the growths go away from this? No, they won't. That won't be enough. But for the growths to disappear, you need to, well, it goes like this. You take your palms, place them on that same Turmanium ceramic heat, wrap them and warm them up well, powerfully, intensely. And after warming them up, you do physical therapy exercises. The exercises are very simple, flexing and extending the finger joints. For how long? The more the better. But not just once a day and not for 10 minutes. You just work on them for hours. As a result of this work, they go away. It's like bone growths, like osteophytes in the spine. These growths also disappear as you work on the joints and restore their mobility, but only after warming them up. This means intense blood circulation in the area and then movement in the small joints to work on, wear down, and grind away these osteophytes. This is the only thing that can help in such cases, meaning no surgery, no medication, no pill will do anything. It's only drinking water, warming the kidneys and legs, and by warming the hands, working on these joints. That's the only thing that can help. And this isn't gout. It's simply, well, arthrosis of the joints, of the small joints of the hands. That's the only way to describe it. Well, uric acid has nothing to do with it. But the fact that the kidneys aren't working, that is a fact. So that's the information for today about the bony growths in the joints of your hands. Folks, I understand you have other questions you'd like me to discuss. So in the comments under this video, please write what other topics you want me to cover, what subject I should make another video about with you so we can discuss something interesting to, figure out and explain why a particular illness occurs. Remember, on YouTube, your currency is the like. Be sure to leave a like. It's great to see when the number of likes is almost the same as the number of views on a video. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. It's very important so you don't miss the next videos. Activate the notification bell and don't go anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying right here with you. Well, that's all for me today. See you soon. We'll meet again in the next video. It was great to have you here. Goodbye, friends.